There are moments in life when everything shifts in an instant. No warnings, no slow build-up, just a sharp, brutal realization that the world you thought you knew never really existed. For me, that moment came at 2:17 a.m. I was coming home from a 48-hour shift, physically exhausted, covered in soot, my body aching for sleep. All I wanted was a hot shower, a cold drink, and to collapse into bed next to Jessica, the woman I believed was waiting for me. Instead, I stepped into our dimly lit apartment and saw his boots by the door. Not mine. Not Jessica's. Someone else's. I didn't move. Didn't even breathe. My mind was catching up with what my gut had already understood. I had spent years running into burning buildings, trained to make split-second decisions when lives were on the line. But standing there, staring at those boots, I felt something entirely new: stillness. Not panic. Not rage. Just a deep, quiet certainty. I knew. And I knew exactly what I was going to do. See, most men would have stormed in, slammed the door open, screamed accusations, demanded answers. But I'm not most men. Firefighters don't waste time on what's already burning. We control the burn. So instead of walking further inside, I stepped back out. I closed the door as quietly as I had opened it. Because Jessica thought she was safe in that bed with him. She thought she was in control. She had no idea the mistake she had just made. I didn't need to catch them in the act. I didn't need to hear the lies. I cared about control. And from that moment on, I was the one in control. If you had asked me 24 hours earlier, I would have told you my life was strong. Stable. Built on a foundation of hard work, trust, and loyalty. I had a career I loved. Being a firefighter wasn't just about putting out fires, it was about brotherhood, about walking straight into danger and knowing you had the skill and the courage to handle it. Every day, I faced situations most people wouldn't survive. And yet, no matter how difficult my shifts were, I had one thing that made it all worth it. Jessica. She was my safe place. My calm after the storm. While my job was unpredictable, exhausting, and often brutal, she was the constant waiting for me at home. I met Jessica 6 years ago at a friend's party. She was smart, beautiful, and had a natural charm that made everyone around her feel important. When she laughed, people listened. When she spoke, people leaned in. And when she looked at me for the first time, I swear I felt something shift. It wasn't instant, but it was real. Over time, we built something solid, or so I thought. I wasn't some naive guy who believed in fairy tales, but I believed in us. I believed in the little things, the goodnight kisses, the Sunday mornings in bed, the way she'd roll her eyes when I came home smelling like smoke but still pull me into a hug. I trusted her. I never questioned her late nights at work. I never doubted the sudden weekend trips to visit old friends. I never saw the signs. And maybe that's why, when I saw those boots by the door at 2:17 a.m., I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt something much worse. Clarity. The kind of clarity that doesn't come with tears or anger, but with cold, calculating certainty. Because firefighters don't panic. We don't break under pressure. We control the burn. Looking back, should have seen it. The warning signs weren't just there, they were flashing like hazard lights, daring me to pay attention. But when you trust someone, when you've spent years believing in them, your mind does this thing where it smooths over the cracks. It tells you it's nothing, that you're just imagining things. I had been doing that for months. It started small. Jessica had always been affectionate, the kind of woman who'd kiss me on the cheek while I was cooking, who'd curl up next to me on the couch without thinking twice. But then, the little things started fading. The quick kisses turned into distracted nods. The cuddling stopped. I told myself she was just stressed, that work was draining her. That things would go back to normal. Then came the phone. Jessica had never been secretive. She'd leave her phone lying around without a second thought. But one day, I walked into the room and saw her screen go dark the second I stepped inside. She laughed it off, saying it was just muscle memory, that she hadn't even noticed. And I wanted to believe her. But then it happened again. And again. She started taking her phone everywhere. Bathroom? Phone. Quick run to the kitchen. Phone. I joked about it once, asking if she had some top-secret government job I didn't know about. She just smiled and said, "It's nothing, babe. Just habit." I nodded. Let it go. Because she wouldn't lie to me, right? Then came the schedule changes. Jessica was never much of a night owl, but suddenly, she was working late all the time. Meetings, last-minute projects, unexpected deadlines. I asked her if everything was okay, and she rolled her eyes, playfully shoving my shoulder. "You're acting like I'm out doing something bad," she teased. "You know I'd never do that." And I had smiled. Kissed her forehead. Because I did know that. Except I didn't. The final warning sign came about a week before that night. I was leaving for work early, before the sun even came up, and I forgot my watch on the nightstand. I turned back, walked in quietly so I wouldn't wake her, and just as I was reaching for it, her phone lit up. I wasn't even planning to look. But then I saw the message. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." My breath stopped. I stared at the words, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. Then, before I could even react, the message disappeared, auto-deleted. Like it had never even been there. Jessica stirred slightly, turning over in bed, completely unaware that the foundation of everything we had just cracked beneath me. I stood there, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. I didn't wake her up. I didn't say a word. I grabbed my watch, walked out the door, and drove to the firehouse like nothing had happened. Because I wasn't ready to make a move yet. I needed proof. I needed certainty. I needed to let the fire spread just enough before I burned everything down myself. After that morning, everything changed. I wasn't just a husband anymore, I was a man on a mission. Every touch, every glance, every excuse Jessica gave me felt like another log thrown onto the fire. But I didn't confront her. I didn't even let on that I had seen the message. Because confrontation is emotional. Revenge is strategic. I started watching. The way I should have been watching months ago. Her phone was the first thing I paid attention to. She never left it unattended anymore. She angled the screen away from me. At night, she placed it face down on the nightstand instead of letting it charge like she used to. I didn't grab it. I didn't try to guess her passcode. That would be sloppy. I needed to be smarter. Then came her schedule. Jessica had suddenly started working late every Tuesday and Friday. I ran the numbers in my head. Tuesdays and Fridays. A pattern. People slip up when they get comfortable, and I knew she was comfortable. One night, instead of going home after my shift, I parked 2 blocks away from her office and waited. I watched from the driver's seat, hands steady on the wheel. Sure enough, she walked out exactly when she said she would. But she wasn't alone. A man followed her. Tall, broad-shouldered. The kind of guy who spent more time lifting weights than thinking about consequences. I felt nothing as I watched him open the passenger door of a black SUV, his hand resting on the small of her back as she slid inside. I didn't follow them. I didn't need to. Because I already knew. And it wasn't anger that filled me. It wasn't heartbreak. It was something colder. Sharper. Final. But I still wasn't ready to act. I needed more. A few days later, I had everything I needed. The pieces were in place. Jessica had made a critical mistake, she had gotten too comfortable. She thought I was oblivious. She thought she had control. She had no idea what was coming. That Friday night, she told me she had another late meeting. I nodded, smiled, kissed her on the cheek. Then, as soon as she left, I grabbed my bag, the one I had already packed, and walked out the door. I didn't just follow her. I got there first. She thought she was walking into another night of secret rendezvous, stolen moments, whispered promises. She had no idea she was walking into a trap. When she arrived at the hotel, I was already inside, sitting comfortably in the lounge with a drink in my hand. But I wasn't alone. I had invited her parents. And her best friend. And most importantly, his wife. See, while I was planning, I had been digging. And it turned out, the man Jessica was sneaking around with wasn't just some random guy, he was married. A wife, 2 kids, a nice house, the whole package. And now, his wife was about to see exactly what kind of man she had married. Jessica and her lover walked through the lobby, hand in hand, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world, until they saw us. Her mother gasped. Her father turned pale. Her best friend? Silent, but deadly. And his wife? She just stared. Cold. Detached. Like she had expected this moment, but never knew how perfectly it would unfold. Jessica froze. Her face drained of color as her eyes met mine. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, taking a slow sip of my drink. "Have a good night at work?" Silence. Her lover, the big, confident man who thought he had everything under control, stumbled backward, his face contorted in panic. Then, his wife moved. She walked up to him, took a deep breath, and slapped him so hard the sound echoed through the lobby. Jessica turned to me, her lips parting, desperate for some kind of damage control. But I was already standing up. I tossed my hotel keycard onto the table. "Since you like this place so much, you'll be staying here tonight. Your stuff is already packed. Don't worry, I left enough cash at the front desk for one night. After that? You're on your own." Her face twisted in disbelief. "You, what?" "I moved out," I said calmly. "The lease? Cancelled. The car? Not yours anymore. The bank accounts? Hope you weren't planning on using them." Her mouth opened. Closed. And then, the final nail in the coffin. I turned to her lover, whose wife was still glaring daggers at him, and let a slow smirk creep onto my face. "I figured you two might need some privacy tonight. Since, you know, neither of you have a home to go back to anymore." Then, I walked away. Didn't look back. Didn't stop. Because by the time I was done with them, they were the ones left in the ashes. I didn't go back. Not to our apartment. Not to Jessica. Not to the life I had spent 6 years building. By the time I walked out of that hotel, I had already moved on. But Jessica? She had nothing. Her world didn't just crumble, it imploded. The fallout began the second I left. Her parents were beyond humiliated. Her father, a strict and proud man, refused to even look at her. Her mother cried, torn between anger and shame. And her best friend? She walked away without a word. Jessica had made the biggest mistake of her life, and she was just starting to feel the weight of it. I ignored every call. Every text. Please, let's talk. It's not what you think. I swear, I can explain. Don't do this, please. I didn't reply. Not even once. Because the truth is, I didn't care anymore. Her lover wasn't much better off. The man who thought he had everything under control lost it all overnight. His wife? She didn't scream. Didn't throw things. Didn't beg. She just acted. By the time the sun came up, she had already filed for divorce. Blocked his access to their accounts. Moved out with their kids. By the end of the week, he had lost his home, his marriage, and the reputation he had spent years building. And Jessica? She had no one. Her lover stopped answering her calls. The moment he realized he had nothing left to offer, he cut her off. Their little fantasy world? Gone. She tried to fix things. Tried to reach out to her family. Tried to rebuild. But some bridges? They can't be repaired. I made sure of that. Weeks passed. My life moved forward. Jessica's life stood still. Then, one night, I was at a bar with my crew after a long shift. Just another normal evening. Cold drinks, stories about near misses on the job, the kind of camaraderie that reminded me why I loved what I did. And then, I felt it. That creeping sensation of being watched. I glanced up, and there she was. Jessica. She looked different. Not in the obvious ways, but in a way that told me she had spent every waking moment drowning in the consequences of her choices. The confidence? Gone. The bright, carefree energy? Snuffed out. The woman who once thought she had everything under control? Unrecognizable. She wasn't expecting to see me there. And for a moment, just a fleeting second, I saw hope in her eyes. Like maybe, just maybe, this was her chance. Maybe she could walk over, say the right things, fix what had been broken. Maybe I would give her an opening. Maybe I would forgive her. But then our eyes met. And I smiled. Not cruelly. Not angrily. Just, indifferently. And in that moment, she knew. There was no fixing this. No coming back. No redemption story. She wasn't a chapter in my life anymore. She wasn't even a footnote. Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to say something. But no words came. She turned away. Left the bar without a word. And me? I raised my glass, took a slow sip, and let it go. Because I had already won. They say revenge is about destruction. About making someone feel the same pain they caused you. But the truth? The best revenge isn't about anger. It's not about rage. It's about power. Jessica thought she could control how this ended. Thought she could choose when to tell the truth, when to walk away, when to rewrite the story. She never realized that I had already written the ending. And now, I have to ask you, what would you have done? Would you have confronted her immediately? Demanded an explanation? Given her the chance to feed you more lies? Or would you have done what I did, waited, planned, and made sure she felt every ounce of what she deserved? Tell me, how would you have burned them down?